You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab-proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
My name's Adele Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 345 of Legally Clueless. This is what's coming up.
This aunt is berating me and is like, no, we cannot raise you like that. No, you cannot wash clothes like that. Is that how you're going to be washing clothes for your children? I was 7, but I remember thinking, what do you mean? I'm like, okay. So if I don't have them, then I can wash clothes the way I want, no? So it was an entire thing. And she started telling me, you cannot say that. You will never say that again. You are going to spit because there is no way you're not having children. And because you're going to become a woman, you're going to have children. I'm like, yeah, really? And she's like, yes, and she said specifically because I have a uterus, so I have to use it to have children. I'm like, so if I have it, I have to use it, you say. She's like, yes, you have to use it. I'm like, okay. I was 8 when I was being told about the uterus. Yeah, so what else do I need to know about this uterus? She was like, women have uteruses and it is their jobs to use said uteruses to have children. Now comes the guilt tripping and she's like, do you know there are women who want children and they don't have them? Yet here you are, you will have the ability to have them and you don't want to. I remember thinking, and feeling actually a lot of guilt because I remember thinking, oh, it's like, you know the way they tell us, finish the food on your plate because children in Mandera don't have food. Yes.
That is part 1 of Brenda's story, and her full story is one for the books. I really can't wait for us to get into it a little later in this episode. But first and foremost, welcome to the Legally Clueless family. If you're an OG member, I've got nothing but love for you. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, welcome. You have made a great choice. Audio episodes like this go out every single Monday. On Wednesdays, we have the midweek teas. On Thursdays, we have for mannerless women. And on Fridays, we have our seasonal show called Ask a Therapist. So basically, this is your home and we're going to be walking together throughout the week. One thing I forgot as well is on Wednesdays, we do send out our newsletter that has a personal letter from me that's going to help you navigate your healing and your journey to being your most genuine self. So if you're new here, welcome. I appreciate you. Now, before we get into today's story, just a quick and important update for you. we are hosting our final group therapy for 2025. So this is a 3-part group therapy session. So it's once a month for 3 months. We're wrapping the year up in style. And we do this in partnership with Shamiri Health. This time around, we're focused on childhood trauma. This is something that comes up. It's even going to come up in the story in today's episode. Just things that we have experienced in our childhood that because they happen in so many households, we've normalized them. We don't even think they have any negative impact on us, but they do. They really do. So if we are on a journey of you meeting your most free and most genuine self, we've got to tackle childhood trauma. So we're going to be exploring the signs that you may be carrying childhood wounds. Let me tell you, a couple of episodes ago on the Midweek Teas, we had one of the Shamiri Health therapists, Natalie, come on, and I checked so many of the boxes when she was talking about signs. Mother issues and boundaries, I was there. Mother people pleasing, I was there. Hyper vigilance, where? Anyway, so we're going to be looking at the signs you may be carrying childhood wounds, how it shows up in adulthood, how it's showing up when you're in your workplace, when you're running your business, in your intimate romantic relationships, in your friendships way. We're also going to be looking at trauma responses and coping mechanisms, trauma bonds. We'll talk about healing your inner child and just so much more. It's going to be run by 3 accredited psychologists from Shamiri Health. And the 3 dates, because it's a 3-part group therapy, are October 11th, November 8th, and December 6th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on each of those days. The costs for all the 3 sessions, plus the refreshments across the 3 sessions, plus the resources that the psychologists may print out and give you, all comes to only 4,500 bob. You can grab your ticket or book your slot right now. There's a link in the show notes. We have a few slots left because it's group therapy. It's not open-ended. It's very limited. So if I were you, I would grab my ticket right now. If you're in a season of bettering yourself, on healing, join us. Let's do it in community. All right, let's get into today's episode. This is part 1 of Brenda's story. She takes us from one of my favorite places in Kenya, Meru. It's just so beautiful and so green and so just wonderful. But she carries us through, interactions as a firstborn daughter. You know what pressure that normally or typically comes with in an African household. And some conversations that were happening that I'm just like, what? Why were we telling a 7 and 8-year-old this? But let's listen to the story and then we can come back and you tell me and I tell you some things that stood out to me. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
My name is Brenda. I am 29 years old now. I was born and raised in Meru. I love written words, and I've always worked in proximity to written words, if I can say that. I have 5 siblings, or 4. I'm the 5th one, and a mom and a dad. What I remember about growing up in Meru is how beautiful. Meru is still beautiful, and we would do other things, play outside in the mud, climb a tree, run in the tea farms, something. It was always something. So I got to have broken bones and so many friends in the community. I had 16 pairs of grandparents and so many aunties and uncles. You would not believe it. And of course, cousins in the hundreds and neighbors and friends. And it was a very close-knit community. My parents were both civil servants. They're now retired. So they got to go to work every day, and if we were not in school, we were left to our own devices. Someone was always watching because we had enough people to watch us, but we got to sneak out and swim in the river, which we were not supposed to do. Someone would hit the rock because they dived the wrong way, and there was no way to explain that, but it was beautiful. Now, I am the firstborn, and as with a lot of firstborn daughters, it was a lot in terms of taking care of the rest of the kids. And I feel my parents also did make me responsible for everyone else. So it was a matter of you need to enforce the rules. And also, they really didn't look at my brothers and sisters in a manner of, you've done something wrong. This was more like, also, they did something wrong. Where were you? Where were you when they were doing it? I don't remember it particularly being a burden when I was growing up. At least I never noticed that because I'm good at bossing people around. And also, I thought that was my job and I wanted to do it well. And then also I didn't want to be punished for something someone else did. So in the midst of all the things that we did, I was always looking out for someone else and being like, oh no, don't do that. Oh no, sit down. Or please eat fast. Something like that. That was a lot now that I think back. And I was a very serious child, burdened in a way, but I never saw it like that then. I'd always come back from school and I'll be looking at everyone else and be like, did you finish your homework? Oh no, you can't leave your bag there. Oh no, you have to change from your uniform before we go and play and all that. I guess firstborn things. The way I think people raise girls generally, your responsibility and also the way your life goes is pretty much drummed into you, and not in a very obvious way. It's almost a daily thing in the smallest of things. So, for example, that taking care of others, it will be taken to be a good thing because the assumption is I'm going to grow up, become a mother, therefore those skills are transferable. So if I'm very good at taking care of my little sister, that would mean that I would become a good mother. If I am bad at it, oh well, so I've started failing really, really early. I remember the first time I thought, oh, children, well, no thanks. We had now gone to school. Now our parents, that's when they started introducing like chores. So now we had someone who would wipe down the table, maybe move a few things in the house if we had a mess. We also had to wash our own little things, so socks, handkerchiefs, underwear, things like that. And I hate washing clothes. I really do. To date, I cannot. It's one of those things I will not do it. I don't understand why I need to do it. So, and it started that young. So I remember this aunt, she met us when we were practicing our washing skills. So my mom would teach us something like, you need to separate your colors first, then you need to soak your clothes, then you need to wash them, rinse twice, things like that. I remember the socks were white because they were school socks, and I'm washing them, and instead of bending, which they say is what you're supposed to do, I was just squatting because I'm like, why do I need to bend? After all, the socks are going to be clean, no? I was squatting and washing my socks, and this aunt walks by. But then we lived in one big compound, so we really didn't have like a gate when someone would come in and, I don't know, knock or ring the bell, something. No, they just walked by going to their house, and standing at my parents' door, I can see my grandmother doing whatever she's doing on the other side, and on my right, I can see an aunt doing something else. So like that. So she walked by and she comes and she's like, oh, what are you doing? And we're like, oh, we are washing clothes. She's like, oh no, you're so grown and all these things. And she's like, but why are you doing it like that? I'm like what? She's like, you're supposed to bend. I'm like, oh, I'm tired. I can't bend. They will be clean anyway. So she's like, no, we are not going to raise you like that. I'm like what? I am washing clothes, which is the important thing here. So she says, no, you cannot wash clothes like that. I'm like, hey, why not? She's like, and you know, adults don't know how to explain things to children. They almost think that the questions are unnecessary, a nuisance even. So a child needs to learn how to do things, not why. Ask why or ask why not or ask anything. Don't ask, follow instructions, for example. So this aunt is berating me and is like, no, we cannot raise you like that. No, you cannot wash clothes like that. Is that how you're going to be washing clothes for your children? And I was 7, but I remember thinking, what do you mean? What has this got to do with children in the first place? And I'm like, so what has this got to do with children? I asked her, and she's like, well, I am telling you.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Hautaenda kutoibisha ukifulia watoto wako nguo hivyo. Now that means that you will not go embarrass us washing clothes like that for your children. I'm like, okay, so if I don't have them, then I can wash clothes the way I want, no? And my God, you would have thought that I don't know, insulted her or something. And so she starts telling me all these things, and she's like, do not ever say that again. And in Meru, I don't know if in other places in Kenya people believe the same thing, but we believe like if you misspeak, for example, or if you say something bad to someone or say something negative about yourself, anything that is considered that it would have consequences, because people really, really believe that what you speak will become. So she's like, you need to spit. I'm like, spit what? Because every time someone would say something bad, or an older person would say something, and it's taken almost like to, if they told a child, for example, you're good for nothing, it's taken that that child will become good for nothing, even if they were not that before, because you have spoken over them. So to reverse that, people spit. So she's like, you need to spit. I'm like, no, I don't. No, I don't. I meant every single thing I said. I will not spit. Anyway, so it was an entire thing. And she started telling me, you cannot say that. You will never say that again. You are going to spit because there is no way you're not having children. That's the first time I remember. And it was very jarring, because it wasn't even something that I would say I had thought through, that I sat down and I'm like, and I'm 7, children. I mean, how much thought do you put into everything you say as a child? But then I remember thinking, so for the reaction that she had, what did I say wrong? And that's the first time I remember really thinking about children in a, oh, well, I might not have them. And wow, seems someone is angry about it. After that, I guess I decided to test them in a way. So I told someone else, still in the family, and they were talking about children, as I said, as they always do, I feel. So we were doing something else, and another aunt was talking about children, when you grow up, children this, children that. And they don't say if you have children. If you have children, you will discipline them in this way. And if you have children, you will cook for them in this way. If you have children, they say when you have children. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think I'm having those. I don't think so. This aunt now, I think she took me serious, not like my first aunt who took it as something I was just saying without understanding. She took me seriously. So she was like, no, you don't understand what you're saying. You are going to become a woman. And because you're going to become a woman, you're going to have children. I'm like, yeah, really? And she's like, yes, and she said specifically because I have a uterus, so I have to use it to have children. I'm like, so if I have it, I have to use it, you say? She's like, yes, you have to use it. I'm like, okay. I was 8 when I was being told about the uterus. Yeah, so what else do I need to know about this uterus? She was like, you're going to use it because you have it. Women have uteruses, and it is their jobs to use said uteruses to have children. I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, I'm like, yeah, I still don't feel like it, because even if I have something that is in my body, I remember using like an example of my left hand. I'm right-handed. So I'm like, so I have it, yes, and it's there, yes, but I don't go out of my way to learn how to write, for example, because we were learning how to write using my left hand. It's there, fine, but it's not my dominant hand. It's not like I have to wash with it or write with it or do anything. So she was like, no. Do you know, then now comes the guilt tripping. And she's like, do you know there are women who want children and they don't have them? Yet here you are, you will have the ability to have them and you don't want to. Like, okay, that sunk. I remember thinking, and feeling actually a lot of guilt, because I remember thinking, oh, it's like, you know, the way they tell us, finish with the food on your plate because children in Mandera don't have food. Yes, she said it in that tone. So I remember feeling some type of way and feeling guilt because I'm like, okay, so I have it, I have to use it, and if I don't use it, I'm being ungrateful because someone else could have had it and used it because they want to. Anyway, so now going back a little bit to growing up, my parents love books and they believe in reading. So when we were children, we could either do two things: read or go outside and play. We didn't have screen time. We had an hour in the weekend that was censored, I would say, because they used to watch what we were intending to watch fast before we watched it. And that it would go so fast, we'd sit there begging and crying and be like, Mom, we can't just watch 30 more minutes. I swear we will be good this week and all that. And my parents would be like, oh, no, you won't. No, you will not. So that introduced reading for me, and I'll say the love for words really early. So I would read and read almost excessively. I was a child who read a book a day or so, and because there was nothing else to do, we'd come from school and read or go outside and do other things. I would read everything that I got. So for example, when you're sent to the butchery, or that time when you were sent, they would wrap the meat in newspaper. Our butcher knew that I was going to read that paper. So every time he got a new bunch of newspapers that people would sell to him after reading so that he can wrap his meat, he would call me and tell me, you know, we have new newspapers. You should come and read. So I would go and read that pile, then give it to him to wrap meat, because otherwise I'm going to unwrap my meat and stand there and read it. Then I'll go home. So, and also my dad used to buy all the papers, Standard and Daily Nation at the time, and every single day. And I'll be waiting for him at the door. And should he have forgotten that newspaper in the office, he was going to go back and get it. Because, what do you mean you forgot? What did you remember? What else could you have remembered that is not that newspaper? Anyway, now I remember when Daily Nation used to have Saturday magazine, there was a pullout that was talking about transplant that they did, where they took a uterus from one woman and put it in another one so that the second woman could have children. And I remember reading that feature. It was when the feature would be at the center of the newspaper. So you'd read it on one side and then the other side, you don't have to flip a page. So I read it and I remember thinking, you don't say. So there's a way to get this thing out of me without using it and give it to someone else. Like, hallelujah. You mean? I read through that and I remember thinking, so auntie was wrong. I actually don't have to use it. I can just give it to someone else. And of course, at that age, I didn't know the complexities of surgery or transplant or anything like that. I just found a solution for my problem. So, well. Another opportunity came to talk about children. I was like, by the way, I am not having them. And she was like, why? I'm like, oh, so I learned you can take it out, give it to another woman. And I literally, that's the way I thought about it. Like, you know, the way I would take off my coat and give it to someone. I literally thought of it like that. I will take it out, give it to someone else, and I'm good. I guess she got another answer or another response to give me, and she said, you shouldn't say that. You know why? Because God has given you the ability to have children, and if you say this, then that means that you almost are blaspheming, so therefore God is going to smite me with barrenness. Now I didn't tell her anything, but then in my head I'm thinking, so you're saying I say that I want A, B, C, D. God hears me and actually gives me A, B, C, D. Why is it smiting? Should God be so kind? What are you talking about? Should he be so kind? In my mind. So I literally started praying that God would do it to me. And I'm like, I need you to make me whatever you want to make me, but would you just make sure that I cannot have children? And I remember how disappointed I was when I had my period for the first time. I was like, you have got to be kidding me now, this. Anyway, that's a different stage. I remember thinking, oh my God, please, would you do that for me? Would you do that? And then also my aunt had another answer. She was like, and if you don't have children, you'll never get married. Now, the Meru culture is very, I feel like toxic is a heavy word to use, but it is, especially where women are concerned. Men have children, but they never raise them. It's more of they look at them and they're like, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm a man. And then the woman takes over the work. And my mom and my grandmothers and my aunties and their friends and our neighbors, every woman I knew and I know now always worked. Every single one of them. They were either running a business or they are going to work 8 to 5. But at the same time, they came back home to take care of the children every single day. And there are things that I believed, for example, you have to serve your man like this. You have to make sure you're home at this time because your man needs 1, 2, 3. So in my mind, I'm like, so I was a child, but I'll look at my grandmother and I'll be like, that is not going to be me. What do you mean? That is not going to be me. How do you choose to live like this? With my parents, the same thing. Especially when we were really young, my dad would be the abuju-buju dad, I would say. By that I mean, you see the way people take a baby and they swing them this way and make funny faces and funny noises, abuju-buju. But then when the baby is uncomfortable, they are crying, they give it back to the parent. So he would do that. He was interested in us as long as we weren't quite nice and pretty or we had achieved something. So for example, if we have guests and he would want to introduce us, he would say, like, oh, she got this and this in mathematics, or she got this and that in Kiswahili, or they went to a competition in Nakuru, something like that. So we were either decoration or not to be seen. And when we would involve him in things, for example, like we want to play with him or we want to tell him about school, something, he was interested like for 7 minutes. And then he'd be like, either go tell your mother or go outside and play. In so many ways, he felt like the stranger who lives in my mother's house. But, I know him and I love him and I am supposed to treat him like this, but we really don't have a relationship. So when my aunt is threatening me with not getting married, I'm thinking, like this ones, like, no thanks, I'm good. So I spent my lower primary thinking about how I was going to solve the issues that my aunt had raised in terms of I needed to have children. I was like, okay, so I found that I can take this thing out and give it. So I found that God could also do it for me. So we are going to follow up on that. And also then she said about men, but that's that. We went to boarding school in lower or rather upper primary because we were in class 5. That's technically still lower, but we were in class 5. So, and I went to boarding school and I went to an all-girls school. I feel like that was the first time I was in a place where there was just girls and women all the time 24/7, because otherwise I was among my grandfathers, my uncles, brothers, cousins, and all that. And also they carried that tradition of teaching girls how to become the women that they thought we were going to become in school. So we would do things and they will say, you're doing this because when you get married, you will 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you become a mother, you will 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is why you're doing this. The other girls that were in school with me, they never really had a problem with it. If anything, like, their dreams revolved around that. And I remember thinking, but what? But I don't feel that. And so on Saturday afternoons, we didn't have anything to do with ourselves. We'd go to prep, then go and get tea at 10:45, then just be outside the rest of the day. And we would sit outside and we would oil our ears. And the girls were talking about, oh, I want this in my life. And girls start talking about wanting children really, really, really early. So these are 11-year-olds like me who are like, oh, I want to have 4 children. Well, I want to live in da, da, da. And when it's my turn, I'm like, yeah, I don't think children will be hard in my life. And I remember what they looked like. They looked like I had, I don't know, slapped someone or something. I remember there's a particular girl. Oh, I'm sorry, Christine. And the way she looked at me, I remember that specifically. The way she looked at me, she looked like, what? And they were like, no, you're wrong. People don't do that. You're supposed to do this and this and this in life, and this and this and this is go to university, get a good job, get married, and have children. And that is what you're supposed to do. And every single one of those girls agreed that is what we are supposed to do. Actually, we made a bet that I guess I was supposed to be 23. If I got 23, we thought 23 was very old, by the way. We thought 23 was very old. And we agreed that if we were 23 and I wasn't married and I didn't have children, they were going to give me some money. I don't remember exactly the amount that was, but we made a bet. I was like, I promise you I will be 23 and I will not be married and I will certainly not have children. But I should look for those girls and get my money. I should. And so that was, I guess, primary school. Then we did our KCP and we went to high school. And I ended up in another girls' school. I feel like almost every high school in that time was either girls or boys, never mixed. And it was, now this one was a Catholic school, deeply, deeply Catholic. We went to mass every single day, early in the morning and in the evening too. And the goal was to either make us into amazing Catholics, so we were going to get married and have 6 children, or get into the consecrated life, whichever way you chose, be a nun or something else, but those were the 2 options. So, and everything revolved around that. And I am not Catholic, so even if the school traditions were that, we also got to have, I guess, a Christian union, and I was in that. And well, as I said, I like bossing people around, so I did get into leadership there. And then that rhetoric of God and what he wants for us, which is now having children, became now a thing and strongly. And there were so many things that were kind of limiting in that position, because I felt like there are things I couldn't say and there were things I couldn't believe. So for a long time I was like, okay, I have to find a way. Could one be that bad? I'm like, okay, one couldn't be that bad. Sineza, vumilia kamoja or something. So that was my thought process. And also at that age, my mom started, talking about now our futures. And, this is when we are thinking, I want to go to university and study this, and I want to go to university somewhere. So then the dreams are kind of coming up. And every time we would talk about my dreams, I would talk about everything. And then I'll get somewhere and I'm like, oh, I forgot children. Oh, we need to go back. Where do we add children in that line? So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to university, of course. I'm going to do my undergrad, possibly go back and do my master's, get a job. And I would say, I'm like going to travel. I'm going to do this. And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to have children. Okay, I guess then children should come when I get a job. And I'm like, can I do children? I don't think so. Maybe one that I was thinking about, maybe that. And then also that relationship of being like a second mother from when I was a child made it so that me and my mom never really were close. It was more of, it was more like, I guess, a command line where your supervisor says A, you go do A. You come back and listen for B, you go do B. So that is the relationship we had. And at the same time, I loved her. And I loved her in that childish way that is so innocent and so naive. And so I don't even know how to describe it. It's love that doesn't see flaws, doesn't see humanness. It's just love. And I wanted to please her. I wanted her to be happy with me. So I was definitely going to keep my siblings in line. And I was definitely going to have children, because the way my mother talked about becoming a grandmother, I was like, okay, I am not the one who's going to disappoint her. So I was like, okay, I think I can manage one. One cannot be that bad. And if it is that bad, it is just one. I can survive that, right? I can survive it. I actually want to go back further than my first period. Now, I don't come from a family of shy people, or those people who don't talk about the things that we shouldn't talk about in African households. So money, sex. No. In our house, people talked. Then I had aunties and uncles who didn't seem to be able to actually keep anything inside. They just say things. They still just say things in the most inappropriate moments, but they say things. Now, so my parents had, I guess, a journey to getting to have children. And it took them a while, and they struggled with infertility. And when I came along, it was a difficult pregnancy and an even difficult childbirth. And the first few months were crazy. So no one ever hid that. Everyone was like, oh my God, you grew up, you little miracle. I'm like, oh my God, you are a KG. And how did you? So it was a thing. So every time someone would come up, and either a friend of my parents or someone who knew the story, they would be so happy and celebratory. So from a young age, I understood that children were a blessing. But then I also understood where children came from, because my parents never hid. The way parents, I know a friend whose mother told her, children come from the hospital. So you go, like, you know the way you go to a cafe and order a drink? You just go to a nurse and order a child and even say what gender you want. Parents, anyway. And then the nurse will go somewhere. I never believed that, because my parents never ever said that. And even my siblings, we always knew a child grows in a woman. Then a woman gives birth to that child, and that child is raised. And we also understood, and I particularly remember really understanding that it's not the way people make getting pregnant and pregnancy and giving birth, like you breathe today, you're pregnant. You breathe tomorrow, you're carrying that pregnancy. You breathe the other day and you've given birth. Yeah, you have a baby. I never had that view. I remember understanding, in as much as I could at different ages, that this is what it takes to have a child. And so because we were having that conversation in our house, I knew a child grows in a woman, but I never really knew how a child gets to grow in a woman. I wasn't curious enough to ask, I think. Just before we went to boarding school, we were 10. And, our parents sat us down up until my first brother was thirdborn, and they explained it to us, and they were like, so you guys are growing up, and because you're growing up, your bodies are going to change. And for us, me and my sister, our bodies are going to change in that we were going to grow breasts, we are going to have a period. And now they started explaining. So remember from the baby. So before you have a baby, your body has to be ready. And for your body to be ready, your organs are going to develop to a place where you can have a baby. Not that you should have a baby, but you can have a baby. And so you're going to, they said eggs actually, you're going to have eggs, but then you don't really lay them like the way a chicken does. Yours are going to come out as blood. That was very confusing. I remember thinking, I'm sorry, what now? They're going to come out as what? Now from where? Because I'm like, from where? Where would that be? And I remember my mom getting us the biology picture that had a uterus and the way it was drawn in our books. And because we were not going to learn that for a long time before my mom showed us. So she showed us. So in a way, I understood in an abstract manner, but I'm like, where? So it's in my body looking like that. Okay. And I remember us getting the example of something like your brain or your heart, you know it's there, but it's not like you have ever seen it, but you know it's there because it functions. So part of that function is you're going to bleed every month. And then they told my brother his body was going to change in a different way, and they explained it to him. And then also they had a pad and a pair of panties, and they showed us how to place on a pad and all that. I'm like, okay, so you wear it. At first I'm like, so how am I going to know it's full? And my mom is like, yeah, you won't miss that. Of all the things, you will not miss that. I'm like, okay, but this is how you wear it. This is how you dispose it and all that. And so we had that conversation really early. And we went to boarding school. Now, we went to boarding school is when companies like Always were doing this school outreach programs. I don't know if they still do it. And they'd come to school and they would bring DJs and someone to dance and things. And they would make you excited, you know, about your period, you're becoming a woman, and they would give you pads and they would tell you how to use them. So it was a conversation that we were always having. And I remember the one thing that they did really, really well was create excitement around having a period. Like, they made it so that it felt like it would be like the biggest day of my life up to that point. So I was so excited. I'm like, okay. Now, coming back to God was going to do something for me. I'm like, okay, so you're saying that if I will not have a period, I cannot have a baby. I'm like, I go back and I'm like, so Lord, you know, you and I, we have an agreement. Could you do something? Could you do something before then? But now classmates started having their period. And at this point, we were like 12, 13. And I remember thinking, ni mimi tu nimebaki. So I'm like, well, that might be that answer we were waiting for. And also, on the other hand, I'm like, but I also want to experience what these girls are experiencing. I'm like, well, I'll be missing out. Anyway, I didn't miss out for long. So I remember we were having afternoon classes. Like, we were after lunch, we had gone back to class, and I'm seated in class and I'm like, why does it feel like I sat on water? And I'm like, that feels weird. I'm like, oh, then it's thrown on me. I just took a pad from my desk and I went to the loos, and yes, I was having my period and I put it on the way that we had been showed. And I couldn't wait to tell all the other girls at break time at 4 that I had also had my period. And we had a thing. We were laughing and giggling and celebratory. Like, we were women, you know. And I remember the one thing that my parents and aunties and cousins and everyone else and teachers and Always and everyone else, they never talked about pain. They literally made it so that you would feel nothing. You're just bleeding, that's it.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. What a powerful story. And that's just part 1. Part 2 is going to be out next week, Monday, in episode 346 of Legally Clueless. So much to say. Hey. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to hear your thoughts as well. So drop them in the comment section wherever you're listening to this podcast from. But number 1 for me was conditioning starts so young. What? Okay, we need to sit down and have a conversation about this. Oh my days! Like the tiny, seemingly fleeting comments we tell young girls are conditioning them. Like at age 7, while you're washing your clothes, which is just something or a skill that is shouldn't be gendered first and foremost. It's a survival skill, because will you be buying new clothes? Every time yours are dirty? No, you will not, right? It's just a skill that one must know, okay? Regardless of gender. How that became, you're going to embarrass us because you don't know how to wash your kids' clothes. Why are you telling a 7-year-old this? And like, what correlation? What are we up to? I also felt like, and this I've read up on, I didn't experience it per se, being a last born, and also just like the type of person my late mother was. This wasn't her type of parenting. the parentification of children. And so many people had their childhoods robbed because they were responsible for things that they shouldn't have been, even in their own individual lives, but they were also made responsible for their siblings. Really just shouldn't be the case. Really just shouldn't be the case, you know? And then it seems like something small, but something else I really connected with is the importance of exposure. And exposure doesn't necessarily have to be in the form of making sure your kid travels to different communities or cultures, etc., because that is a privilege, unfortunately, in the world that we live in. But there's exposure that reading and books and articles gives young people that is so powerful. I know that wasn't kind of like a major theme in this part of her story, but like you can see and you can hear when someone talks that this person is exposed. You know what I mean? Like they question and they don't automatically settle into one way of living life just because that's the way they've been told. They are aware that there are many ways to do life, and you can question and you can create and you can be led by curiosity and compassion and empathy, because when you're reading and you're exposing yourself to so many different ways of doing life, so many different cultures, you expand your own truths. And sometimes it's may not be related to this, but it's something I think about a lot, especially when I look at the internet and then like digital platforms like social media. It's always such an oxymoron. Is it an oxymoron? Well, it's strange. Let me just call it strange that we have all of this access to seeing people living such different truths and different cultures and like designing different ways to live life. And what it does, which I thought it would automatically do, is like expand your worldview and expand your truths. But even with that access through connectivity, what I see is people now like have such a hard stand on their truth being the only way to do life. It's just weird. Honestly, it's just weird. I would love to hear what you connected with or what thoughts were sparked by part 1 of Brenda's story. You can drop that in the comment section wherever you are listening to this episode on. Part 2 will be out next week. Now, if this episode moved you, make sure you follow or subscribe to Legally Clueless on whatever podcast streaming platform you're listening to us on. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can watch the rest of our shows there. Sign up for our newsletter at legallycluelessafrica.com. And if you're ready for guided healing work, register for our 3-part group therapy. The link is in the show notes. And thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode to the very end. I truly, truly appreciate you. And I know that you have everything it takes to heal. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.